For months, she parked in his driveway like it was her God-given right. But when he finally called the tow truck, twice, it triggered a public downfall so spectacular, the entire neighborhood couldn't look away. Jackson Reed was a patient man. He had to be. As a middle school science teacher in Clearwater, Florida, patience was practically written into his DNA. His days were filled with restless preteens who cared more about TikTok dances than chemical reactions. But he had a rhythm to his life that kept him sane. His home was his sanctuary, a tidy, single-story brick house with a well-manicured lawn, an American flag by the mailbox, and a driveway just big enough for his Honda Civic. It wasn't a mansion, but it was his. A place where he could grade papers in peace, kick back with a cold drink, and escape the noise. Until Dana Whitmore decided that his driveway was hers. It started innocently enough. One afternoon, Jackson pulled into his street to find Dana's silver Lexus RX parked in his driveway. He figured maybe she had guests and needed to shuffle some cars around. No big deal. He let it slide. But then it happened again. And again. At first, Dana always had an excuse. Just running inside for a second, she'd say with a dismissive wave and a tight-lipped smile. Or, dropping off something for a neighbor. Each time, Jackson stayed calm. He wasn't the kind to kick up dust. He believed in patience and giving people the benefit of the doubt. That changed the day he came home exhausted, ready to collapse on the couch, only to find her Lexus once again sitting in his spot. This time, there was no excuse. No note. No quick errand. Just her car, parked like it belonged there. Jackson sighed, climbed his front steps, and knocked on Dana's door. She answered with a smirk that said she already knew why he was there. "Jackson, what's wrong?" "Your car is in my driveway again," he said, calm but firm. Dana blinked as if the idea had never occurred to her. "Oh, I had a delivery and the driver needed space. I figured you wouldn't mind." "I do, actually," Jackson replied, his voice cool. "Please stop parking there." She rolled her eyes. "Come on, Jackson. I live right next door. It's not like I'm some stranger. You're still on my property." Dana let out a dramatic sigh, waved him off, and promised to move the car. And she did. That time. But it kept happening. Again. And again. Each time, Jackson's frustration grew. He left notes that vanished. Knocked on her door to no answer. Then came the tipping point. One night, he came home to find not just Dana's Lexus, but a shiny black BMW in his driveway. That was it. He snapped a photo, marched to her door, and knocked hard. When Dana answered, wine glass in hand, her face barely hid the irritation. "Whose car is that?" "A friend's. We're having a little get-together." "Thought it wouldn't matter." "It does," Jackson said, jaw clenched. "This is my home, not a public lot." "Well, you should have said something earlier," she shrugged. "I'm saying it now. Move the car." 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Jackson was done. He walked back inside, sat on his couch, and looked up the local tow service. The next day, Jackson called the HOA, hoping for support. "No luck." "Sir, unless there's physical damage, we can't intervene," the woman said, boredom in her voice. "We can send a courtesy email." A courtesy email. Right. Jackson decided to handle it himself. He left one last note, in bold black marker, "Do not park here again." That evening, her Lexus was in his driveway again, parked crookedly, like she couldn't be bothered to align it. Jackson stared for a moment, then walked to her door and knocked. She opened it slowly, a sip of wine on her lips. "About that," she said lazily, "I meant to text you, but you always park on the street anyway, so." Jackson took a deep breath. "This is my driveway, Dana. My property." She gave a short laugh. "You're really getting worked up over this?" "Yes," he said, taking a step closer. "Because I've asked you over and over. And you keep ignoring me." "Fine," she said, waving him off again. "I'll move it." But as he turned to leave, she muttered something. Low, but loud enough to catch the smug tone. He turned back. "What did you say?" She gave an innocent shrug. "Just don't get why some people are so uptight." That was it. No more warnings. No more notes. The next time she parked there, Jackson called the tow truck. The driver arrived in 20 minutes, assessed the scene, nodded, and said, "She's on your property?" "Yep," Jackson replied, handing over the deed. "All right, then." Minutes later, Dana's luxury SUV was hoisted onto the truck, wheels locked. Jackson crossed his arms and watched with quiet satisfaction. An hour later, bang, 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 his front door shook. Jackson took his time answering. When he did, Dana stood there fuming, silk pajamas and flip-flops, her hair tousled. Where is my car? Towed. You what? Told you not to park there. I'm on the HOA board. I have connections. Good for you. It's at Sunshine Towing. Have a nice evening. He shut the door. She screamed. Literally screamed. Called the police. When they showed up and saw the deed, the officer said, "Ma'am, he's within his rights." Dana's face turned crimson. But the message? It didn't land. Instead, she escalated. First came the passive-aggressive notes. In a community, we should be considerate. Then the HOA complaints. Your porch plants are too tall. Trash cans left out too long. Mailbox paint is fading. Next, security was called on Jackson for watering his lawn. The officer looked embarrassed. Jackson didn't bother explaining. Tell her to find a new hobby, he said. Dana smiled smugly from her porch. Jackson marched right up to her. You know why they came. Just watching out for our community, she replied. You want a war, Dana? You got it. A week later, she parked in his driveway again. Jackson smiled, made the call. The tow truck arrived in record time. As they lifted her Lexus, she came flying out of her house. Stop. That's my car. Jackson sipped water calmly. Shouldn't be on my property then. I had guests. Not my problem. You'll regret this. No, Dana. You will. And she did. Soon, the neighborhood turned. Flyers appeared, accusing Jackson of being a bad neighbor. But nobody bought it. Dana had burned too many bridges. Then came the HOA meeting. Jackson sat front row. Dana was ready to play victim. We need to address a complaint, the board chair said. Against Dana Whitmore. Her face froze. Multiple reports of harassment, misuse of HOA resources, and retaliatory actions. She protested. Loudly. But no one backed her. Then, 2 days later, Jackson's trash cans vanished. He found them behind Dana's house. Took pictures. Knocked on her door. Want to explain this? I don't know what you're talking about. I have photos. You're done, Dana. She shut the door. Jackson filed a final complaint. By the week's end, Dana was removed from the HOA board. She never parked in his driveway again. Never looked him in the eye. Months later, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. The day the moving truck pulled away, Jackson stepped onto his porch, took a deep breath, and smiled. The war was over. And he had one. The lesson? Some people only learn when everything they've used to control others is stripped away. And when they fall, the whole world watches. But Jackson's life didn't go completely quiet after Dana moved. In the weeks that followed, neighbors began dropping by just to say hello. People he had only nodded at from a distance now invited him to barbecues and game nights. Turns out, Dana had rubbed a lot of folks the wrong way over the years. Now that she was gone, it felt like a collective breath had been released throughout the cul-de-sac. One evening, as Jackson was watering his lawn, Mrs. Phelps from 2 houses down walked over with a tray of lemon bars. For the man who finally stood up to the queen, she said with a grin. Jackson laughed and took the tray, touched by the gesture. Over time, Jackson began to notice something strange. His house started to feel warmer, not physically, but emotionally. The silence that used to greet him when he walked in no longer felt lonely. It felt peaceful, earned, like the quiet after a storm. One Saturday morning, Jackson was trimming his hedges when he saw a young couple touring Dana's old home with a realtor. They looked like newlyweds, wide-eyed and hopeful. The woman pointed at the driveway, said something to her partner, and they both laughed. Jackson smiled. He hoped they would make better neighbors. Later that week, he found a thank you card in his mailbox. No signature, just 5 words in blocky handwriting. Thanks for taking her down. He chuckled, slipped the note into his desk drawer, and got back to his evening. There was still grading to do, bills to pay, and games to catch on TV, but it was all lighter now. Dana's reign was over, and in her place, the neighborhood found new life. Sometimes, standing up for yourself doesn't just change your world. It changes everyone else's too.